In this video, I will go over how to solve percent problems and introduce you to what's called the ratio proportion method. First, you need to review what ratios and proportions are. Ratio is when we're comparing two things. So an example might be if someone is shooting a basketball and that person takes 5 shots and makes 3. I could write this as a ratio. 3 made shots out of a total of 5 total shots. That's a ratio, 3 out of 5. Now, a proportion is when we compare two ratios or use a ratio to find something. Using the 3 made shots out of the total 5, I might have a question where someone asks me if she takes 15 shots, what would you expect the number of made shots to be? Well, I still need to write the 3 made out of 5 taken. I set this equal to, and I'm going to have another ratio here. So here I ask the question, if she takes she takes 15 shots. So now remember the 5 here, that was the total shots. So now we're saying, what if she takes 15 total shots? That's going to go in this same place in this denominator here that the 5 did. And we want to estimate how many we might think that she might make. How many would she make? Well, when I say how many, that means I don't know. It's kind of like is a question mark. But for algebra, you're going to use, let's just use an X, meaning how many shots. She made 3 out of 5. How many would we expect her to make out of 15? This right here is a proportion. Let's take that and let's see how we solve that. Solving proportions, well, when if you're first learning these, you would be taught that since there's a denominator here of 5, the ratio is 3 out of 5. You're supposed to think, okay, if I had 5 here, but now I want to have 15, what number would I multiply the 5 times to get 15? Well, I would do times 3. Then over here on top at the numerator, I would do the same times the 3 to figure out what this x is. So the 3 times the 3 up here would mean that this x would be a 9. But the problem is you're not always going to get easy multiplications from your denominators. For instance, you could have had a ratio that is 7 out of 11, and we want to find out how many out of 27. You can't think of a number that exactly multiplies 11 to get 27. So we need to use something that a lot of people will call the butterfly method. It's called the cross multiplying method. The way the cross multiplying method works is the cross comes in to play because we make this kind of a design. What this shows us is that we're going to take this 3 in this numerator and then this 15 down here in this denominator, and we will multiply those. At this point, we write an equal sign. Look then at the denominator here of the 5, and this is connected to the x over here now. We will do 5 times that x. 3 times the 15 will be the 45, and then that equals 5 times x, or 5x. Solving algebraically, you divide here by 5 to cancel that 5. Dividing here by 5, we get 9. X is 9. Now that we remember how to use ratios and proportions, there are 3 words that we need to focus on doing this method. One of them is percent, the other one is, and the other one is of. Here's an example of a question for percents, which is 70% of 10 is what number? What I want you to look at here is focus on that we have, well, instead of the word percent, we have the symbol, but there's percent. Here's that word is, and of is over here. When we're going to set up these proportions, whenever you see something percent, such as now 70%, you're going to write that number 70 and you're going to write it over 100. Always over 100. When you see percent, write it over 100, because really percent, cent means 100. That's where they get this. But all you have to remember, if you see 70% or 10%, whatever the percent is, write that number and then over 100. We're going to write an equal sign always then. And remember, for portions, we have a sort of a fraction situation, ratio situation, and we have a number above this bar in the numerator, and we have a number below that. So we need two numbers here. And the way we do this is, a lot of times teachers will say it's is over of. Well, what this means in this example is, we said 70% of 10. Of 10. See, it says of 10. That goes, it's out of 10. That means that 10 will go in that numerator, denominator there. So then it says 10 is what number? When you see the word what, we have to use a variable. We're pretty much saying what out of 10 is 70%. But instead of using a question mark, why don't we just use, we can use the letter X to hold that place there. Now I have a proportion that we've set up. It's time to solve that. To solve this proportion, we're going to do the cross multiplying we learned about earlier. We're going to multiply the 70 times that 10. Then I write the equal sign. Then we do 100 times the x, so 100x. Then to solve for the x, dividing both sides by 100, you get over here 700 divided by 100 is 7, and then the 100 divided by 100 cancels. X is 7. Here's another example. Let's try to set up the proportion for this. The easiest one to look at is find the word percent. Whatever is before that, that's what you're going to put over 100. When it doesn't give us a number, such as 7% or 10% or 15%, but it says what percent, just put variable x there. We always make this equal to something. Keep in mind we do something is over of. Right here we have 8 is. There's the is. 8 is. I'll put the 8 in the numerator. And on the bottom I need the word after of 12. Now I have that there. Time to cross multiply. The x times the 12. We'll get 12x. And that's going to equal the 100 times the 8. 800. And then when I want to divide this by the 12, got kind of a messy number. It came out to be approximately 66 or 0.6 repeating. So whatever your teacher wants you to round it to, you can decide from there. How about this one? What is 15% of 20? Well, the 15%, we know right there the 15 is going to go with the 100. 15 over 100. Of 20, out of 20. So 20 has to go on the bottom of the next ratio. That leaves just this space up here. What is? What is stands for x, or x stands for what is, so that goes there. Now that that's set up, cross multiplying, 15 times the 20 is 300. 300 is equal to 100 times x. Then we're going to divide both sides by that 100 and get over here 300 divided by 100 is 3 equals x. Farm has 40 acres if 30 of those acres are planted with corn. So looking at the numbers where we've got 30 of the acres out of 40, it's good if we reword this in our mind to think of the way the pattern we were using before. If I'm going to use is, let me think of is something out of something. Well, we're looking at the 30. 30 is the part. We're going to write 30 here. This is where the percent stuff goes, so don't worry about that. 30 out of, this is of the 40 total. So I know I put a 40 there. When I have that, now I know I put the 30 over the 40 because 30 was before the word is and 40 was after the word of. But see how you do have to reword these a little bit. You have to think a little bit how you're going to phrase these. But once you do, once you identify what's before the is and what's after the of, you're all set. That's the most difficult part, really, because once you get to this point, cross multiplying is no problem. Right? I'm going to get 40x because I multiply those. I'll take that and I'll multiply the 100 times the 30. That's going to equal 3,000. Then dividing by 40. Then one last step is we need to just divide 3,000 by 40, and that comes out to be 75. The 40s cancel here, so x is 75. X is 75, which means that we asked for what percent of the farm acreage is corn, and the answer is 75% of the farm's acreage is corn.